my challenge has been to fraternities and sororities. There are many of them in our state. Stop celebrating and having parties and having dances and rededicate yourself to engaging with young people in our society, and take all of the money that you waste on a weekend for a Saturday night dance and invest it in a scholarship program so a kid would have something to latch on to. But I want to take one more step. Young people, those of you who are here, cannot rely on outside forces to save you. You must learn to take responsibility for yourselves. You must decide that you are more valuable than others will ever think you are. You must decide that I want to be somebody, and then you go out and do what it takes to become somebody. You must find satisfaction in wanting to know more than your neighbor and outthink your friend. And I've often said that put me in a contest with anyone and I will outthink most people and out-strategize most people. You must learn these techniques, but you can only do it on your own. All of your learning is not going to take place in a classroom. Your learning will take place as you become observant and you go out and seek information and learn to teach yourself. You have a great asset that is available to you, and it is called the internet. It used to take me hours when I would write my papers and my books to go to the library and go through the dusty catalogs to try to find the references I needed. Today, you can sit down at a computer and in 10 minutes, you can have at your fingertips every conceivable kind of information anywhere in the world, from foreign languages to statistics to information on anything you want to know about. The difficulty is, of course, is you have to understand what is true and what is not true. So that's where thinking comes in. If it's not logical, then it's not true. But you must learn how to think logically.
Amen.
Now, for the rest of us, we must present ourselves as role models. As chairman of the State Board of Education, I became very, and I still am, not just because I'm no longer chair. When I walk into a classroom and I see a teacher standing there looking worse, dress-wise, than some of their students, it disturbs me to walk into a classroom and see a teacher in shorts, dirty tennis shoes, and an old dingy t-shirt. It bothers me. And why does it bother me? Because teachers have a lot of influence on the attitudes of students. When I was growing up, my teachers came to men with a shirt and a tie, and I understood the importance of that. Let me tell you what happened to me when I was young, growing up. There was a man that came to see my mother on a frequent basis. His name was Mr. John Wesley Dobbs, and I tell this story in my book. Mr. John Wesley Dobbs was called the Black Mayor of Atlanta back in the 50s, in the 40s. He was the grandfather of Maynard Jackson, the first black mayor of Atlanta. And Mr. John Wesley Dobbs would come see my mother in a shirt, a tie, a suit, and a briefcase. Mr. John Wesley Dobbs never said one word to me, never even touched me, but that became my idol, my model. And I said to myself, when I grow up, I want to be like Mr. John Wesley Dobbs. I want to wear a tie, a suit, and a shirt, and carry a briefcase. That image never left. But that's an indication of what an impact we as adults can have on young people. Dress, young folk, is important. even I find myself being influenced when people come to see me as to how they are dressed. A young person going for an interview who walks in my office dressed nicely and neatly has a better chance of getting access to an opportunity than someone who comes in scraggly. Remember, dress gets you in the door. Intelligence keeps you in the door. I was asked recently, what impact do you think the election of President Barack Obama will have on young people? And my response is probably not much. After we get beyond the excitement of the first occurring, there isn't much left. Because you see, I didn't have Barack Obamas to look up to when I was growing up, but I did have role models. There was Ralph Bunche, who was one of the most successful ambassadors, black ambassadors America has ever had. There was Booker T. Washington, who was an outstanding educator. And there was George Washington Carver, who was a great scientist. But other than remembering their names and what they had done, their impact on me was not very well. Let me tell you who had the greatest impact on me. It was the man who was my scoutmaster, who touched me several times a week. It was my teacher who cared enough to want to find out how I was doing. It was men in the community and women in the community who would ask me, how can I help you get where you want to go? It was my teacher who said to me when I went to her in the 10th grade and said, I'm dropping out of school because I lived in a segregated, oppressive society, and I'm never going to be able to have a decent job because no one recognizes my education, and discrimination and prejudice will always be in my way. Why should I be educated? I'm never going to have the opportunity. And that teacher looked at me and said, I can't guarantee, I can't promise that you'll ever have an opportunity. But I can guarantee that if you ever have the opportunity, you'll be prepared to take advantage of it. That's what we have to do, friends. That's what we have to say to young people. We can't guarantee a bright future. And young people, you can't expect to just simply have a bright future handed to you. But we can guarantee that if the opportunity comes, you'll be there, you'll be ready, and you will take full advantage of it. I will end with two stories that I think, three examples that I think are important. I was doing a book signing in Durham several months ago, and a young man walked up to me and introduced himself and told me that he was a successful accountant in Durham, or is. And I remembered when I first went to Duke University working with a group of 25 young black students out of the Durham City Schools. This person was one of the youth in that group. And he was one of the people we thought didn't have a prayer of being saved. And this young man told me that by virtue of that experience, he turned his life around and became committed because he saw me and others that made him believe that he could achieve. And he went on and is now a successful accountant in Durham and doing extremely well. There is a young man at SAS Institute today making 6 figures in income. And he said to me, his story is fascinating in that he was homeless in high school. His mother was on drugs. He had nowhere to live. He lived under bridges. Some of his white student friends recognized this and convinced